Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey there, Space Cadets. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr. You can find us on Instagram at Space Cadet Sports. You can find me on social media at Paul Salazar Jr. I am here in studio in Los Angeles, broadcasting to you with my co-host and producer running around the studio here. That is Carla, the dog. She's trying to keep it down. She's done really well with a bunch of noise here today in sunny Los Angeles. But we do have a lot of commotion in the neighborhood. So I do apologize in advance if Carla decides to get on mic. She always chooses one moment in the show, whether she's agreeing with me or disagreeing with me, to get on mic. So she might be on the show. But welcome, Astros fans. Welcome, diehards. Definitely, it's a tough time to be an Astros fan right now with the Astros where they're at with their record at 6-12. Definitely I wanted to get onto the podcast. I wanted to produce another video podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, the Space Cadet Sports Podcast here on Spotify or Apple or perhaps one of those other streamers, that's great. Thanks for checking in with the show. If you'd like to check in to see what the video aspect of this is like, you could do that at the Substack, which is spacecadetsports.substack.com. You could definitely check that out. We like to put some content that isn't behind a paywall on the blog. You could check out some meme reactions. You could check out just some, I'm not exactly a beat writer. I'm a fan, so it's kind of more of an offbeat writing that happens there. You're more than welcome to check that out at the Substack. But yeah, let's get into the show here. I wanted to kind of start off with a reality check for Astros fans, if you will. If we look at the divisional standings right now, it doesn't look good. If we just kind of haven't been watching a lot of games, very closely, and you're just kind of following along with sports, national sports media, and you're hearing about the Astros being at the bottom of the division with a 6-12 record, that's worse than the Athletics right now, that they have a 7-10 record. So you kind of, if you haven't been watching the games and you're just kind of following along with Chandler Rome and The Athletic or your Sports AM radio show, or you're still on X and you're following whatever crazy hatred is there, you could probably start thinking that this Astros team is trending downwards and maybe it's time to start worrying about them. But I have a quick reality check for you folks here, because right now the Astros are not looking good. That's for sure. I'm not trying to say that this is exactly where we want to be or anything. But we do lead the Rangers, that team from Arlington, 4-3 right now in the divisional record. And it's looking like, at least where we are in the young season and how these teams are playing, it looks like that they will be the toughest challenge to win this division. And right now, we have a competitive edge over them, at least so far. So if we're looking at where we are in this short season and we're getting upset about it, we're getting frustrated, if we're looking at the fact that when we look at the divisional standings, we are 3 games back from the divisional lead, and we have a lead over them currently. That's actually a pretty good sign. We're not where we want to be, that's for sure. I'm not trying to say this is the record we want, but when we have so much baseball left to be played, and when we are only 3 games back ahead of the main team, and we hold the lead over them right now, that isn't so bad. If you look to the FanGraph projections from FanGraphs, I did say it. If you look at the FanGraph projections, they at this point, this article, I'm going to double check when it was written on April 15th. So that was yesterday, before we lost the first game to the Braves. Our projected wins on FanGraphs yesterday was 86.6, almost 87 wins. So that's still a high projection to win from some of the best statistics that you can get out there right now. That's a projected win total 53 and a half. And we look at the divisional percentages. We're still looking to win the division by 53%. We'll get to the ALCS by projected at 17.1%, and just generally getting to the playoffs, we're projected at 70.1%. Uh, you know, that's still taking a dip back when we looked at what our projections were at the beginning of the season. I know. However, if you're just looking at these numbers in a vacuum, that's still pretty good. I think I mentioned it a little bit in the last podcast, the last episode of the podcast, that sometimes winning creates bad fans because we become spoiled. We definitely have been spoiled by thinking about what this team could have been. I think it's time, to let go of that. What this team could have been didn't happen out of the gate, didn't happen in the first couple of weeks of this season. There were injuries. There was definitely a lack of pitching, and Joe Espada and Dana Brown were desperately hunting for outs. They were looking for outs any way they can get it, and we'll get to that. But this just wasn't exactly the team that we thought we were going to start off with, at least on paper. We knew we were going to lack starting pitching. We knew we didn't have Lance McCullers and Luis Garcia. But it wasn't until the spring training where we really started to worry about Justin Verlander and Jose Urquidy. That happened late into spring training. And then Framber Valdez, that was the eclipse day. We definitely didn't have that on our radar. So, losing those three starting pitchers really put the Astros in a bind early in the season. So I really am like, reality check. This isn't who we thought we were going to start the season. Now this is who we started the season with, and it wasn't exactly what we wanted, granted. But this is not who we thought we were going to start the season with. And if we can just, keep pushing, keep winning as many games as we can, and just hold the ship together until we can get our aces back, then we're looking at a starting rotation of aces, essentially. Right now, we've talked ourselves into Christian Javier and Ronel Blanco being our aces, and they've lived up to the part. I'm not saying they haven't been that. They've lived up to that role, and they're stepping up when they're needed to play that way. So if we have them going strong, and we have Justin Verlander and Framber come back, now we're looking good again. Now we don't have to worry so much about our fifth starter and sometimes the occasional sixth starter. At that point, we're developing our pitchers again, in that role. We have J.P. France and Hunter Brown, or J.P. France and Spencer Getty, or maybe even Brandon Bielak or Seth Martinez, stepping up in those positions. I'm not really sure. Right now, it is a bit of a shuffle based off of those performances of last week. There's still plenty of baseball to be played. We're still looking to see how Hunter Brown and J.P. France bounce back in this Atlanta series. I'm not trying to bury them. We and even if we are burying them, it's just sending them back down to Sugarland and helping them develop. Christian Javier didn't have the straightest path to success as an Astros starter. The Astros want to develop their pitchers, and sometimes that means going back down. Sometimes it means moving to the bullpen. Just today, the Astros called up Forrest Whitley, or I should say at this point, it's still speculative. A source has said that they're calling up Forrest Whitley. It looks like that is what they're doing. However, there hasn't been an official word from the team as to who's being sent down. There is speculation that could be Spencer Arrighetti with Justin Verlander expected to be back on Friday with Sean Dubin, on the roster right now, and we're able to get length out of him. It looks like Spencer Arrighetti might be the odd man out here, and that is to be determined. There seems to be the thought that the team is going to go ahead and let's see what Hunter Brown has. We're not going to just send Hunter back down. We're going to let Arrighetti go back down and keep developing his stuff. But that hasn't been official yet. So this is not reporting it. At this point, it's still speculative. But that looks like what the team is going to do right now. So I guess let's kind of talk about the pitching carousel right now. Dana Brown and the pitching carousel has kind of been something that a lot of fans have not understood this season. So I'm hoping that I can bring some clarity to exactly what is happening with all of these transactions and the pitchers that the Astros have been using lately. So I'm gonna go here to just in case the injuries and moves section of MLB.com. Gonna see uh, what GM Dana Brown is up to, and also to get some of those names that we have used. Let's see. Yeah, it does look like they have not announced um, officially what the move. Sorry, there. Officially, what the move is going to be for the Astros here. But yeah, so the pitching carousel, we're kind of looking at these pitchers that the Astros have had to use recently. Manager Joe Espada has been under heavy criticism due to the pitching performances that the Astros starting pitchers have given, and the fact that it seems like Joe Espada is letting a lot of these pitchers pitch out of trouble, and the Astros are losing games because of what this starting pitching is not performing up to task. And a lot of fans are wanting to bring in the middle relievers, or wondering why JP France went out there and pitched for so long, or why we're not pulling Blair Hindley quite fast enough, or why Blair Hindley is there in the first place. Well, we kind of have to look at the Houston Astros organization and how baseball kind of works as a total. So I think what's happening here is fans are getting very frustrated that there is not better options at starting pitcher right now. They're kind of looking at Blake Snell and wondering why the Astros didn't pay the man. Like why the Astros, are saying that he was overpriced, or why we didn't go for somebody. I believe it was Lance Lynn. I'm really struggling to think of the Michael Lorenzen. I believe was another name that was out there. Why are we not going for these starting pitchers when we obviously could use some fresh arms? Well, one of the main reasons is going to be that the Astros are already paying into the luxury tax. Now, if we sign a bigger name, we're most likely going to exceed into the second level of luxury tax, where owner Jim Crane is going to be paying a lot more money for the overages that the Astros are paying there. He is reluctant to go into that tax frame. Now, I know that a lot of Astros fans have been calling Jim Crane cheap in the past during off seasons. I know that has been a thing the national media has really pushed, but Jim Crane isn't being cheap. He is thinking this is a business decision. How much are the Astros going to perceivably gain from getting that big contract and going into that tax bracket? And what if we lose? There is that huge what if. What if we don't go to the World Series and fans get angry and fans don't re-up on their season tickets? Fans are very, very critical right now, and Jim Crane's having to look at this from an owner's perspective and think, if the fans get cranky, if the fans get angry, and I start losing money as opposed to gaining money in my profits, it's going to be much harder to have a team that is middling and is into that second tier of taxes, and the fan base is not really wanting to rally behind a mediocre effort. That's basically what happened to the Yankees. When you start spending and spending and spending, and spending isn't the answer always in baseball, and when spending doesn't equate to winning, fans get angry. They're angry about the prices. They're angry about mediocre results, and you can tend to lose profits. Now, it might not be big profits, but when you're looking at the profits that are coming from these huge organizations, if they start dipping down incrementally or even by percentages, that a lot of business-minded people will tell you that's not good. That's not a good trend. And that's when a lot of these teams have fire sales, when these organizations, tend to take a step backwards because they're not able to build on their winning ways. So in my mind, Jim Crane is just thinking about the future success of the Astros and wanting to keep them competitive and successful. And right now, where Dana Brown, at least at the beginning of the season, where GM Dana Brown and owner Jim Crane were thinking is that our starting pitchers, our Hunter Brown, our JP France, Spencer Arrighetti, Sean Dubin, our Ronel Blanco, that we're going to have 2 or 3 of these guys emerge as major league talent level pitchers this season, the way that JP France emerged last season as an inning eater and was able to give us quality innings and keep us in games. They're looking to see who's going to make that leap or that step this year. Right now it looks like Ronel Blanco is firmly putting his foot out there and saying, "Put me in, coach." So, we're kind of halfway there. They're not completely wrong. But I think what they didn't anticipate was for JP France and particularly Hunter Brown to struggle so much this season so far. That can change. That can turn around. I don't think this was a bad bet by Jim Crane and Dana Brown. I think this was a confident bet. You want to place confidence in your pitchers. When you sign somebody uh, to the team like that struggles like Jose Abreu, you want to build up their confidence. Baseball is a very psychological game. If you take people out too much, or if you start shuffling around too much in positions, or in their spot where they're hitting in the lineup, sometimes this can mess with players' psyche. This can knock their confidence down a couple levels. And that really matters in a game like baseball when you have to be aggressive, when you kind of have to swing at a ball and you're not 100% sure where it's going to end up, but you have to hit it with the confidence that you know where it's going and you know where you want to put it. Little things like that really do eat up to a player's ability. And right now, you could see the lack of confidence from Jose Abreu. So they want to build up the confidence of these young pitchers. They've been able to build up confidence of young pitchers in the past, like Luis Garcia. Christian Javier is a prime example of that. We are able to build up young pitchers that maybe weren't the biggest signings, weren't the biggest prospects, but with the use of analytics and with the use of hard work, these pitchers can be solid major league starters if they just keep growing, keep changing, and keep with the program. So I'm thinking that that's what they were doing, and they still think that they can do that. And in a way, I just want to also defend Joe Espada here, because a lot of people have been very critical of his position, of his the positions that he's putting his pitchers in right now. Saying that he's knocking these, really abusing these young pitchers, and he needs to pull them out so that we can win these games. Well, it's hard to explain, but essentially, well, not even that hard to explain. I think what it is it's hard to swallow for a lot of fans. But essentially, the explanation of that is right now, the Astros are thinking of winning long term. Winning a game is important, but having a culture of winning is just as important. And it might seem counterproductive for me to say having a culture of winning by kind of using sacrificial lambs, or for kind of being okay with however many runs a team puts up against you. What it's doing and what it's saying is like, okay, we don't have the pitching for these two games. We had to use Gray Kessinger as a pitcher for one game, folks. We didn't have the arms for the outs that we needed. So we were really stretching these pitchers out and asking them to do things where they were most likely going to get a lot of hits. Asking a pitcher to keep throwing and pouring balls into the strike zone, knowing that hitters are getting good hits off of them, isn't fun for the team to do or for the pitcher to do. But you have to have the confidence to throw it in there, get the hit, and hopefully your defense will pick you up, or at some point the inning will end. But the reason why that's winning baseball is because you're not overtaxing the guys in the bullpen. You're not asking them to go out there and injure themselves for one game in April when it's so early in the season, and you're going to need these people to be fresh, hopefully for the postseason later. It is a long season, and you don't want to overtax these people so early. That's why you call up a bunch of veteran arms from the waivers and send them, right back down, or DFA them like we had this last week. Definitely shout out to Miguel Garcia, Wander Suero, Joel Kuhnel. A lot of these pitchers that have come in, they're kind of veteran arms. They pitch for a day, a Dylan Coleman. GM Dana Brown has been kind of really looking for outs anywhere. So you bring up these veteran arms. You get some outs, as many outs as you can squeeze out of them. It seems kind of cruel, but it's what you do. You squeeze as many outs as you can out of them, and you send them back down to the minors. You let them go back on waivers because they're not part of the long-term solution for this club. You kind of let those guys get beat around so that names like Seth Martinez, Brandon Belak, Taylor Scott, these guys that we had question marks early on in the season, the organization is saying, we're going to kind of stick with these guys and let these guys go as long as we can because we like the results that we've had out of them. So what you do, instead of keep throwing them into innings and letting their arms fall off, is you bring up guys that you're just kind of using for efficiency and kind of saying, well, if anybody else needs them, there you go. But if we can send them back down to the minors, well, then maybe there's another veteran arm. So I think it's kind of hard to see how that can be winning baseball and how that can be trusting your organization. But that is a trust into the arms that we have here currently. Not wanting to overuse somebody like Sean Dubin until he's ready to pitch. Dubin is now with the club. Forrest Whitley is going to be with the club. These guys are probably arms that we wanted a couple weeks ago, but they just weren't quite ready to be producing and helping us out at a major league level and at a position where the team and organization has felt that it's best for their development to be here. So it was a rough it's a rough go of it for GM Dana Brown, and he's definitely going to have to. We're going to look at his moves very critically this season if the division race is tough or if the wild card race is tough. But these are confident moves in your organization. These moves that Dana Brown is doing, and it's forcing Joe Espada's hand to kind of put some sacrificial lambs out there and to tell his offense, "Hey, we're counting on you to make some big plays here." Defensively, and we're counting on you to get some big hits. You need to cover these guys. They were able to pick it up and cover Blair Henley. But this team needs to get timelier hitting, especially if they're going to have to cover some runs from some bad starting pitching or some suspect middle relief, or frankly, even right now, wasn't even in my notes, but truly, we're starting to have to look at what's the back of the pin going to give us this season. Are we shaking that rust off yet with Josh Hader, or are we, going to have to be looking to maybe a Rafael Montero and Brian Abreu pitching a little later in the games than we, were initially thinking. But I think another thing that has been, kind of transition out of that and to another kind of thing that I've heard a lot about from Astros fans is, are we missing Maldy? I would have never thought this would happen so soon. I definitely was a huge Martin Maldonado lover. I thought the intangibles that he brought to the game, the things that he does for a team is so very important. And I never understood why the casual fan hated on him so much. I mean, a lot of catchers famously had trouble slugging. A lot of catchers, would struggle to put a string of hits together. But the things that Martin Maldonado brought to the game that you could just see with on an eyeball check, he seemed to be able to get people fired up. The players loved playing with him. Pitchers would say that they wanted to pitch to Martin. So I thought, yeah, the team would miss Martin Maldonado this year. I would miss Martin Maldonado this year, but I find it kind of ironic and hilarious that the internet, Astros fans, all the ex-boys and all the sports radio men, all those boomers are missing Martin Maldonado. However, it can't be just clean missing it. There always has to be some hatred wrapped into it, of course, because that's how we do as human beings. But that's coming at the expense of Yainer Diaz. People are saying Yainer Diaz is not calling games correctly, that he is struggling to kind of control this pitching staff. And this is why the starting pitching has struggled. Yainer Diaz is the reason why the Astros starting pitching has struggled so much. And fans are missing the intangibles Maldy brought. And not, it's kind of like it was a 90s rom-com. The fans didn't know what they had until he left. We miss you, Maldy. He took off his glasses. How beautiful is he? I think it's kind of funny because Yainer is working on it. I think something I mentioned in the last podcast or 2 podcasts ago now is that the Houston Astros have called up the catching coach, one of the bullpen catching coaches from Sugarland to the Astros. So welcome to the show, coach. Normally that's not something that I would report or be that excited about. But the reason why that's good for us is because our current bullpen coach, our current bullpen catcher, who is our catching coach, is going to be able to be available in the dugout for Yainer Diaz and Victor Caratini to talk about game planning, to talk about defense, to talk about pitch framing, all these little things that, Martin Maldonado did expertly and did without thinking too much and was very good at game prep. I'm not saying Yainer Diaz is bad at game prep. He learned a lot from Maldy. I think that his game calling is pretty good. I think his pitch framing is excellent when he's able to communicate well with the pitcher. I think these are things that you learn with time. and you learn what pitchers like as you go and as you grow. You learn these communication skills. So I think I have a lot of hope that Yainer Diaz is going to be just like Martin Maldonado in a couple seasons. But when the pitching staff is struggling, fans and the pitching staff are looking for anything they can get. And Martin Maldonado, it was always a solve and always somebody that would help the pitching staff and help pitchers. And boy, oh boy, do fans miss him now? I miss him too. But I just don't think Yainer Diaz is the reason why the pitching staff is struggling. He might, be a little bit of a contribution, but it'd be like less than 3% or something like that in my mind. I don't think it's fair to put that on him. He can improve with his game preparation, but I don't think that, the pitchers are executing exactly what is being asked of them. And I think, I don't think that's being unfair. I think a lot of pitchers would say that. I don't think they would put this in Yainer Diaz. I think they would say that I didn't execute the pitch I wanted, or we didn't have the game plan we wanted. I don't think they would be like, yeah, if Martin Maldonado was here, I would have gone into the sixth inning, no hits. I think that Yainer needs some time to grow, and we need to focus on the fact that he is bringing us so much offense that, this is what we wanted. We wanted Diaz over Maldy. We're getting it. Now, we're going to get this game prep under control. I truly believe having another mentor figure there for Yainer is going to be a huge thing. However, a big question mark for all of us, and something that I was talking about GM Dana Brown earlier, that we kind of do need to hit on real quick is first base. I'm thinking about doing this as a standalone podcast, because we can talk about this for a while. I kind of want to do a deep dive almost around the league to see where the league average talent is right now, because it doesn't seem like we really have found a long-term solution at first base for quite some time. Since Yuli Gurriel really, started aging and taking a step back, we really, for a while we didn't know. We were looking at maybe David Hindley. There was even talks one season of Yordan Alvarez learning first base. We've had Mauricio Dubon. We're at John Singleton, Bly Madris. For a bit, Yainer Diaz was playing some reps at first base. Now we're looking at Joey Loperfido. And obviously the biggest signing of the group, the answer that we thought was the answer for first base, Jose Abreu, who has had some struggles in an Astros uniform, particularly with these slow starts. And when the offense isn't getting timely hitting, when the offense is being asked to produce a lot of offense, when 7 runs on average isn't enough, we're looking at positions that traditionally bring slugging and bring hitting. And when you see the numbers that are being put up for first base from Jose Abreu, you're wondering, how long can we let this guy struggle a bit in that position? I think if the Astros can win a couple more games, we really have enough hitting and to cover Jose Abreu struggling for a little bit. I don't think it will be a problem. However, if we keep getting these results, if we're not driving in the timely runs, if we're not able to cover Jose Abreu, and it seems like we're always putting him up to the plate with bases loaded, and when we need the runs, it's going to be a tough start of the season for Jose Abreu. It will put him in unseen positions. He's already batting 8th. We don't need to be pulling Jose Abreu out as frequently as we have. We need him to get some steam rolling, but if he isn't getting the results that he needs to get for a struggling team offense right now, it looks like we will be looking for other answers. So, I'm kind of secreting it out to the universe that we'll do this as a long form, maybe its own episode podcast. But it's also kind of funny that I'm like, yes, maybe I'll do this. Yeah, I want to do this, but we'll see if I do it. It's going to be a week, folks. I think we're being so critical of the pitchers, but when you look at where everyone was drafted and how they were developed and what they're being asked to do, it's kind of wild and this team deserves a lot of credit for, frankly, even getting the wins and results they have right now as a pitching staff. Sadly, the Astros have not been able to get both hitting and pitching going at the same time, it seems. But when you look at what the pitchers are being asked to do, and when you look at some of the results that they have had, it could be a lot worse. They've really struggled for sure. But what about Ronel Blanco and Christian Javier? we definitely like looking at the struggles of the Astros starters, but we're not giving credit to the organization for Christian Javier or for Ronel Blanco. Yeah, Ronel Blanco probably would not have been in the starting rotation if it wasn't for injuries, but Ronel Blanco was on the 40-man roster. We were expecting innings out of Ronel Blanco this season. And, the team has put him in that position because they have confidence in him. They see what type of pitcher he can be. He didn't exactly execute that last season, but he's come in and taken this opportunity that the team has given him, and he's giving us good innings. The team deserves credit for that. The minor league system deserves credit for that. Joe Espada, Jim Crane, Dana Brown, Josh Smith, all these guys that we tend to criticize for the lack of success for the other pitchers, they really have done well with these two. And if these other guys can just turn it around, they'll be getting credit for them as well. These young pitchers, Christian Javier, Framber Valdez, Jose Urquidy, they were able to develop in circumstances in the past where, they weren't at the top of the rotation. They were in the back of the rotation. They were able to get some some bullpen help, at times. They were able to go back down to the minors and develop. They weren't always put in these games where it's just like, look, kid, you're going to wear an L and you just got to go out there and throw strikes and we're sorry. We're going to do our best. So I think that these pitchers will develop, these options of Brown, France, Blanco, Belak, Arrighetti, Dubin, Whitley, Martinez. When you look at all those names, you can kind of understand why maybe GM Dana Brown and Jim Crane said we don't need Michael Lorenzen. We don't need Lance Lynn. Blake Snell that's too rich for our blood because it gets us into a different tax tier. We can maybe piece together a Blake Snell within this group of pitchers of Brown, France, Blanco, Belak, Arrighetti, Dubin, Whitley, Martinez. Blanco has definitely risen to the top as somebody that can do that. If we could just get one more name out of that group, this really won't be a conversation anymore. And it's just really unfortunate that they've been batted around as they have. But if France can just kind of bounce back again, if Brown can kind of turn it around, or if one of these younger arms just step up and just start eating some innings the way JP France did last season, we'll be all right. But we definitely need the vets, Javier, and sadly, due to our circumstance, Ronel Blanco is considered a vet just due to his age. He is 30 years old. He has played in the Dominican League. He has dominated other places. We're going to need them to shoulder the load, get some quality starts. We truly, in the sense of the name, we need quality starts. We need 6 innings and less than 3 runs from those two guys going forward so that we don't have to tax the bullpen, so that the bullpen can step up and save the young pitchers when they need saving, so that Joe Espada doesn't get blasted for keeping a pitcher in there too long. So we don't have to worry GM Dana Brown and on the waiver wire just picking up vets to just throw for 2 innings and then send back into the waivers, so that Astros fans don't panic. And speaking of, I think we should end this with while we're hoping that the young guns develop, we should talk about this Houston Astros panic meter that I made, because I feel like everybody's been panicking. So let's might as well have a little fun with it, right? So this Houston Astros panic meter, yeah, here it is. It's fancy. I made it myself. You could put it on the fridge. Thanks, Mom. Mom, I'll print it out and you can put it on the fridge for you. She puts all of my podcasts on the fridge. But this meter here, it ranges from never give up, never surrender, which is generally where I am as an Astros fan. I won't give up on them. I won't surrender that any points that they're bad. And then we go all the way up to they'll never be a baseball team. Maybe they should try a different sport, which is definitely how I felt around 2013. I was like, I don't know, these guys might be a really good handball team. So let's look at some of the other settings on the meter, because I feel right now we're definitely not at either one of those settings, but I think we're somewhere in the middle. I don't think we're quite at the point that everybody thinks we should be. Okay, this is an interesting setting. This setting says the golden era is over. Okay, yeah, the golden era is over. This is a commonly used setting. I feel like a lot of the national media members love this setting. I feel like a lot of new Astros fans love this setting. If they're telling me the golden era is over, I'm like, hey, do you even know who Dallas Keuchel is? And most of the time, those fans don't know who Dallas Keuchel is. It's like, come on, you don't even know. Yeah, learn your history, kids. I've already turned into that old man in baseball, sitting in the corner sitting in a park bench, feeding pigeons. Like, you don't even know Back in my day, Dallas Keuchel was an ace. But yeah, so the golden era is over is definitely a commonly used setting. Oh, here we go. This is an interesting setting. Getting a haircut during the game. Hmm. Yeah, I guess that is somewhere in the middle. I don't know quite. I feel like it is a false panic move. You're trying to remain cool, but really you're panicking. Who gets a hair? If you've gotten a haircut during the game, let me know. I'm very curious as to what the experience was. It seems like a very odd decision. But yeah, let's see what else this is a good one. Jose Altuve nail biting. Yeah, Jose Altuve style nail biting. Whether it's yours or his nails, it's a rough look. That's definitely, it might not be the biggest amount of worry, but or concern, but it's getting up there. And this is one of my favorite settings for sure. Okay, this setting is my favorite, I have to say. Asking my devoutly religious mother to pray for the Astros. If I'm asking my mom to pray for the Astros, it's probably getting bad. I'm starting to panic. I want to get God involved. It might be time to start worrying. This might actually be worry. This might not be concern anymore. This is now worry. I find that I'm the type of person, I always ask my mom to pray for ridiculous things. Like because she's always so flowery. It's so beautiful, the language she uses to pray. The way she asks God for things. I definitely love my mom's faith. I don't exactly have that type of faith, so I like asking her to ask God for things for me, because it's like not that God wouldn't listen to me. I'm not that much of a sinner, but I just feel like, how you would send the brother or sister that you think your parents like the most to go ask for candy. It's just kind of that situation. It's like, I think I'll get better results if I have my mom ask. But I love asking my mom to ask for ridiculous things. So that she'll be over there like, "Dear Lord God in heaven, we come to you humbly, on bended knee. You've created the heavens, you've created the earth, and now we ask for you to create an opportunity for my son, Mijito, to have a Baja Blast frozen drink from this Taco Bell. We come to you humbly, in his name we pray." I think it's hilarious when my mom asks for really silly things through prayer because of how majestic it sounds. And also because I think one day God's going to go through our text chain and realize that I never asked for anything big. I just asked for a couple Dorito Locos tacos. He probably let me right into heaven. He's like, "Oh, this was easy stuff. He didn't ask me for anything hard whatsoever. Come on, man." I think he can't be mad at me that much. But I do think my mom gets mad at me. She gets frustrated with me because of how blasphemous I am. She's like, "Oh, you're laughing. You're just making fun of this." And I'm like, "Mom, come on. You can't be that mad at me. God made me in his image. Like this person has a sense of humor. This person probably likes to get roasted. Why would God make me this way and make me want to roast them all the time if they didn't like comedy? I think God is a little blasphemous himself if he made me. I mean, this is God's fault, really, when you think about it." And my mom would just really, she's laughing, but kind of annoyed with me as how blasphemous I like to be. But I mean, honestly, if God made me, if God made me in his image, he probably likes comedy. You think something's funny about this. So anyway, so asking my mom to pray, that's going to be that last setting. But I think the setting that I'm putting the Space Cadet panic meter officially at right now, let's go ahead and set it. Whoop. We're going to put it on, you can go get nachos during an important moment. That's the panic level I'm at right now. And that might sound confident, but that is where I'm at. It's still April. There's plenty of time to turn this around. I think if you wanted to go get some nachos during a big at-bat, go get your nachos. Don't worry about it. There's going to be plenty of at-bats. There's going to be plenty of big moments that you don't want to miss later on in the season. This is still early in the game. Go get those nachos. Go have that bathroom break. Don't sweat it so much. There's plenty of times. The skeptics are walking back their pessimism even right now. On the podcasts I listen to, and the blogs I read, a lot of people, even my friend Chandler Rome, who I kind of went at, for being such a pessimist. This last article after the Spencer Arrighetti start was so positive about Spencer Arrighetti actually having this stuff to make it in the league. He said that he has the confidence after, going those tough innings against the Atlanta Braves offense, the best offense in baseball, and getting the results that he got, getting the strikeouts that he got, that he now has the confidence to think that he can pitch in this league, which is important. We need that confidence. We need these young pitchers throwing strikes. A lot of the young pitchers right now are nibbling the zone. They're not getting the calls, and they're just not pitching as confidently as they can. So we need that confidence. But I just thought it was funny that Chandler Rome, instead of, after losing that game to Atlanta, I was getting ready for all the negative pieces again, but Chandler Rome's having to walk back the negativity because if it's nothing but negative, no one's going to read his articles all season. He needs somebody checking in with him, So I think it is funny that a lot of people are walking it back so that they have space to almost get angry again this season. But I do think that the Astros weren't going to sweep the Braves. I'm hoping they take 2 out of 3. Realistically, it's looking like it's going to be a tough couple of games, but I still think they're capable of taking these next 2 games. It's just going to take a lot of timely hitting. This last game was a bullpen game, and their bullpen got to us. We really weren't able to get any timely hits and knock in some runs. We're going to need to execute with runners in scoring position. But that's to be seen. I'm really thinking that we have what it takes to take these next 2 games, and I'm just going to remain hopeful. We're right here, right on that panic setting that we can go get nachos during an important moment. We're not too far up the panic meter. Don't panic yet, Space Cadets. Thank you so much for joining me on this extra special episode of the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I've been your host, Paul Salazar Jr. You can find me on social media on all platforms at Paul Salazar Jr. You can find the podcast specifically in the blog at spacecadetsports.substack.com or on Instagram at Space Cadet Sports. Carla, who's running around here, our guest host and producer, you can find her on Instagram if you want to see some dog photos at good.dog.carla. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review. Give us a 5-star rating. Share with other Astros fans that want to remain positive and want to talk Astros with me this season. Thank you so much for listening. Please come back and give us another listen soon. And vamos Astros.